Hello, my name is Thurza Amina Asanga Ray. I am running currently as your candidate for the Green Party for Manchester Rusholme constituency.
I'm Afzal Khan, and the party is Labour, always Labour, and the constituency is Manchester Rusholme.
Hello, my name's Joel McGuigan. I'm 23 years old and I'm standing for Reform UK in Manchester Rusholme.
Mohammed Bilal Samed, representing Workers' Party of Great Britain.
Hello, my name is Peter Clifford. I'm the Communist League candidate for Manchester Rusholme.
Hi, my name is Fraz Bhatti. I am standing as a parliamentary candidate for Manchester Rusholme constituency.
I think higher education is important because we are aspiring to the next generation, reaching those higher levels in institutions and establishments. I know that obviously any student studying, whether it be masters, PhDs and doctorates, it's a really stressful time and it's a real burden financially because a lot of the time you're a mature student at that stage and, obviously overheads are quite high. So would definitely keep supporting those people in higher education.
We need to make sure our young people are given state-of-the-art excellent education because the world we are living in now is nothing like what it was 30, 40 years ago. You will come, start a job, you finish your job in the same retirement. Now, most of us will end up with 4, 5, 10 different jobs. So we've got to have that skill base with adaptability so that they can carry on making progress.
So, Reform's approach to higher education is not to do what the Lib Dems promised in 2010 and failed to deliver on, which is say everyone will just get free fee, no fees, etc. What we would do is have a targeted approach where people doing certain subjects like STEM and particularly health, people training to be doctors, nurses and other vital frontline workers have their fees discounted year after year. So Reform's policy on NHS workers is that each year pro rata you get 10% of your fees paid off. Also, you would have 0% income tax up to £50,000 for all frontline NHS workers, which would create a real incentive for people to stay in the UK rather than move to countries like Australia, Canada for better job prospects.
Well, I think education, like many other things, the railway industry that I work in, the healthcare system, is increasingly getting commodified. It's run as a business. And I think as such, it gets narrowed. Many students come out of their education with a piece of paper and a debt and are uncertain about their future. And I think this is all part of a product of a dog-eat-dog society. And I don't think that'll fundamentally change without a broader social and political struggle, which is what our campaign is about.
Politics is lacking in our education. We should involve more. That way the students can take over the political field and see what's necessary. Our economy is in crisis. We should definitely engage in economics. And we are the birth in Manchester of chemical engineering. We are the birth of the first computer. We should make these a priority from Manchester and lead the way all over the world.
Well, at the moment, universities are doing a lot to introduce a lot of courses into it, but I think some more needs to be spent in sites and SEC, more needs to be done in the modern sciences as well. And the priority would be to meet up with both of the universities in the constituency and understand how the system can be better in terms of more new education can be introduced to these campuses.
Current situation, I think the Green Party's policy states it very clearly, a whole review of that. I personally believe that there should be grants and we definitely need to review and look at what cost students are facing when enrolling in any kind of course.
We need to look at it. How do we make sure there is a system which is fair? And when I use the term fair, what I mean is, end of the day in education, there is something you benefit as a person, it's a better life. Again, stats prove that's who's a graduate is likely to earn more. And the second side is the society benefits. So therefore, this has to be a partnership. If you can get that balance right, in an ideal world, there should be no loans, as a society. And I think, hey, we're rich enough, the fifth largest economy. Let's invest in our young people.
With maintenance loans, personally, what I would say is we shouldn't have a system so much where people are punished for their parents daring to have done well. And when we class well, I believe the threshold is something like 50,000, something like that. So I would say have it quite a bit higher, since it's not been raised in quite a while, to make sure people are able to focus on the studies and not have to work long hours in hospitality or warehousing, as people I've met have been doing.
I think it's a national disaster, to be fair. I think that should be subsidised. We will be definitely fighting to subsidise that. Students shouldn't be paying any fee. They're the future of backbone of the country. If they don't get the most help they need the most, it's absolute disgrace, and the government should be ashamed of themselves. Workers' Party's priority is to make sure they subsidise that student fee.
I think the whole loan system is horrible. It's part of what I said about education being commodified. Not only is it run that way, but we have to buy our education. So I'm opposed to the whole system.
Well, the approach should be, it should be seriously looked at, because before you even complete your degree, you're in debt. And that debt needs to be addressed, because then a lot of the students don't go or can't find a higher job, so they always feel that pressure. I have come across youngsters that have had issues to do with mental health because they're feeling the pressure from the maintenance loans. And it needs to be dealt with. Yes, if given the opportunity and elected, it is one of the first things that I will be raising with government, whichever it is in power.
I think first of all, with my role in housing, is holding those landlords to account. I played a part in a housing steering group and housing charter that has been launched this year from the combined authority. So it's making sure that each landlord lives up and goes over and beyond some of the requirements in that housing charter, but obviously ensuring that it's affordable. I can't stress enough with the living crisis and the struggle with poverty in our communities. It's making sure that students can move in and live there comfortably and form part of our community.
At the moment, it's really difficult. As a city like Manchester, it's a world-class city, it's a growing city, so there's a huge pressure. On top of that, we're still living with the Tory party's policies of house building and the social housing. So again, the pressure is increasing, and hence we see skyrocketing rents. And some of the properties are appalling. So therefore, that enforcement side has to be strengthened as well. So more housing needs to be built, more need to be tailored for the young people as well. Maybe we need to have more collaboration with universities. Don't treat it as a business, treat it as a service. And provide those houses to the young people at affordable prices at good standards.
With housing, one thing to do would be to allow students to keep more of their own money. That's not taxing people every month on low wages, So that's why Reform would raise the threshold to £20,000, meaning pretty much all students would not be paying any income tax until, they're in a proper graduate job. But in the past few years, we've been having net migration at the level of the city of Manchester, around 700,000 a year. Now this undoubtedly, undeniably increases demand for housing, increases the competition. I've had personal experience of being told, no, there's 50 other people who have applied to rent this place, and that's in Sheffield. In Manchester, it will be even worse. And you've got places where people are really competing, upbidding the landlord to get a place. So you need to bring down those numbers. That's one of many solutions.
I think students should have access to quality, affordable housing, but I think it won't take the magic wand of an MP to bring that about. It'll be a broader struggle. Our party, we call for a public works programme that should provide the housing, the hospital, the schools, the roads that are needed. But that won't come without a trades union-led struggle and a political struggle. I mean, our problem as working people and also young people face is we don't have a political voice, in my view. that fights for our interests, that defends our interests. So that kind of thing can only come about. It's not, capitalism doesn't give you things because you ask for it. It's what we fight for that brings change.
We will definitely speak to council, also landlords, do their best to make sure the housing is affordable, even 50% off for students. That's one thing that we will try to do our best to get. We are tackling in our specialty party these kind of issues, which is really prioritizes the students, and we will do our most best to make sure students get affordable housing, rents, accommodation. I live amongst the students. I really know what they need, and I will definitely fight for what is necessary the most. I'll definitely make sure that the housing and the accommodation is very intact, and definitely 100% I will make sure that their security is intact.
Well, first of all is building up a partnership, which the local authorities have failed to do so. But if I'm elected as a member of parliament for this area, I would like to build partnership with the landlords in the area and try to work with them and try to get government and the local Metro Mayor to contribute into some sort of a scheme where students get some sort of special discounts for the rentals, like the housing. When you go into the council housing, the housing associations give a discounted rent to their tenants. That should be applied to the students as well.
I think that students definitely should be counted. A lot of students that do study end up wanting to stay in the UK and form part of our economy and give back and, take up obviously the jobs and the needed jobs. I'm a migrant myself, so I understand the need for migrants in the UK and how much they contribute, and we value them. So I would definitely be wanting to look at supporting that.
Well, I think probably it makes sense to take them out, because end of the day, when the students come here, they're here to study. So they're not here to live here. And I realize I've got enough experience to understand some actually may choose to live here. Interesting fact for you, number of the leadership that we've had, including myself, I've come over, but then made Manchester our home because we love this place. Currently a leader of the Manchester City Council, again come from another place. And I think with overseas students, there's an added bonus, and that is because the world we are living in, we are so much interconnected, interdependent with one another. This is an amazing way of enriching your life and building relations for the long term, the soft power for the Britain as well. So let's encourage more students coming in. Let's take this number game out of this. That would help everybody.
Actually, no, you'd be surprised to hear this from someone from Reform who, your Labour MPs and Lib Dems, Greens, even Tories will say we hate immigrants, etc. No. Nigel Farage, back when he was in charge of UKIP, had this as a policy that should be included in the figures, because for all the students they go back. It should only include those numbers if they decide, when they decide to stay after 2 or 3 years. We should include it maybe that year's immigration figures, because obviously that isn't adding to the population.
Here's the issue. Government policy and the policy of all the parties on immigration is not actually to stop immigrants coming, but it's to see people who immigrate as a source of cheap labour, people who are prepared to accept worse conditions. So it's a question for everyone, for every working person, how it gets used to divide us. So I'm not particularly interested in what the figures are. In my opinion, if people are here, they're here. What I'm concerned about, and I think this is a big question facing working people, is how the visa system is used to restrict people's rights and force them to do things that they might not want to do. My point is here, it's in my interests as a worker, as a trades unionist, and in the Communist League, to fight for the end to all restrictions on people, including an amnesty for undocumented workers, so that we can't be divided.
But we welcome immigration in our party, and we have to also understand that the basic needs of people that are already here. Tackling immigration in our policies It's a very important one, and we think that we can do more than any other government in power can to tackle these problems. It is very important that we look after the students who are from abroad here already, make sure they're looked after, make sure their security is well intact. And we have to make sure that they are really happy and get the education they really came for and spend the money that they really spent on. And it's only fair to say that.
Well, the thing is, immigration is a very wide subject, and immigration is something that's been going on, as I said, from 1900s into this country. This country, whole foundation of it is built on immigration or migrants. So welcoming students is something that the UK should be doing, like many other European countries are doing, and including them into numbers of immigration, I think is a bit of a farcical. And it shouldn't be included. The students should be given the right to work, and their studies should not be sort of politicized in any way, shape or form.
I think whole reform is needed around visas, and you can already see that there's a backlog of people who've come in as migrants, talk less of students who have come here and wanting to educate themselves. So definitely need a lot more work quickly to get that reform done and have the right student visas process put in place.
At the heart of it is this idea, isn't it? Do we want to be in an open country where people can come with their talent and we can benefit, they can benefit? Or do we want to be very narrow-minded in this idea? Yeah. So I think wherever there is talent, we have an amazing history. We have amazing history where we are connected to so much of the world. 60 plus countries are in the Commonwealth where we have a direct connection in the history. So we need to make most of these things. And that also includes bringing the talent in. Those with talent, not only that's good for them, it's good for us and it's good for our society. So policies which encourages that is a win-win.
So with graduate visas, I would not abolish it, but it does seem the case that universities are overly relying on foreign students entering, and so I would seek to reduce the numbers, but not to end it. I work with a lot of people who are on visa programs in the hotel in Sheffield.
Well, once you're here, as far as I'm concerned. So if you want to stay on and work, or you want to stay on and study more, you should be allowed to, right? My main concern is how this is used to divide us and weaken all people here, right? And not to see people from other countries as competitors, but to remove all. I mean, people on visas have to pay for the NHS, have to, have all kinds of things, and get rid of all of that, and have some unity.
Great Britain has a very warm heart, and we are centre of education. Many people from all over the world came to England to be educated, and they went to become prime ministers, politicians, chemical engineers. We always welcome that. We're proud of that in Britain, and we really take that on board to invite more people in a good manner to come and educate yourself in Britain, as long as they know the rules and regulation and how important it is to respect our views of the education system in England.
Some people are using it for genuine reason. Some people have used it not for genuine reason, and they've kind of made it worse for everybody else. Somebody coming from abroad to better their life here, they should have been given the full opportunity to do so. Why people have to take shortcuts or do something not within the law is because of the conditions that's been created. Once them conditions are dealt with, then things will start looking differently.
I think listening, first of all, to students and what they need. It's quite good that we can sit there and make a decision about what they need to be and do better in their studies, but it's actually listening to them and trying to put those materials, whether it be practical or actually tangible tools to help them in their studying so that they can deliver on the results that they need.
Those people who are coming here spend long years. Medical isn't easy. And then we do so much investment in that as well. And then if they leave, That's not good for us. It's no good for anyone. And then when you look at the NHS, jewel in the crown for our public services, again, we've been struggling because the right investment not been happening there. Proper transformation which needs to improve is not happening. Here we are with more than 7.5 million people waiting. That could be me or you. So that's why we need to get this all sorted and get it in order so that we do have NHS which is fit for the very purpose the Labour Party set this up. We are committed to this. When we had the last Labour government, the satisfaction rate was the highest. We will do our bit to mend this NHS and get it running to serve.
So Reform's approach to health policies in relation to students is quite radical. We really need drastic change in the approach, which is why we've promised to have medical staff pay 0% income tax all the way up to £50,000, which is huge, which is effectively a pay rise of up to £4,000. That's not even counting the £1,500 people would save on increasing the 20%, on increasing the threshold to 20,000. Also, by paying off medical students' debt over by 10% each year, creates a real incentive for them to remain working in the NHS for a good amount of time.
It's a picture of people outside Christie's Hospital. It's nurses who are on strike for the very first time in their lives. And in the picture you will see me and some other guys who are rail workers from Piccadilly Railway Station. You can see right here the placard. It's a bit hard to see, but what the nurses' placard says it all. It says National Health Service. That's what the nurses think they're living through. Well, what's the route to deal with that? I think it's through getting workers to act together just like we did and start to raise demands about the kind of healthcare system. The fact is, health is more commodified than almost anything. Who's making money out of it? The outsourcing firms, the pharmaceutical companies, the highly paid executive of the healthcare system, the consultants and so forth. It's a bit of a myth. It's more a national health service than a national health service. But it's going to take a workers' struggle and ultimately changing who rules. It'll take a struggle by our class to change that.
We will get rid of any privatisation and we will fight for that. Our NHS is the backbone, what makes Great Britain Great Britain. We need to restore everybody's faith to come back and say to themselves, the NHS is up and working. At the moment, we are in a national crisis of the NHS, and we will do our best as a party to highlight these points, because the most important thing, we can't just rely on foreign doctors from all over the world. We have to rely on our students over here to keep the NHS going.
First of all, I don't represent a political party, but I would represent the students that are residents of Manchester Rusholme. And if they, as a body, come to me and with their concerns, I would be surely taking that up with the government of the day. Students become tomorrow senior doctors or surgeons, and if they have not given a good base, a good foundation, they will struggle in later life. So I would be all supporting them.
Well, since given devolution over 10 years now, it's clearly it's not working. I mean, it's brilliant that we've been given powers, but we need a lot more money in order to deliver on those services.
As a principal point, look, the closer the decision is being made to where the need is, the better the decision. Further away it goes, the more risk they won't quite understand it. On the practicality of it, we've seen Andy Burnham, how he has been a brilliant mayor, how he has championed our needs, how he stood up to this Tory government. We saw his excellent services during the pandemic that we went through. Again and again, having a good, strong local leader, then you know you have a champion on your side. So it's a good idea.
So Reform does strongly believe in devolving powers to local people, but you want to make sure it does get to those local people, not all those powers being put into one mayor who is very unaccountable because, you know, an entire city like Manchester, for example, is strongly supportive of one party. You know, that mayor is quite unaccountable, quite hard to hold them to account. So we would devolve it more locally and put it in the hands of local councils for a lot of issues.
Okay, in Manchester, I don't think for regular people it's made a big difference. In general, a lot of these things are to draw us into an illusion that somehow, including the election on July the 4th, that we have a say, we have a stake in what is happening. I think the big business calls the shots. That's the reality under capitalism, not who you're going to vote for. Their class will be the people who decide if we go to war. Okay, in Scotland, I think there's been some gains on devolution in terms of achieving nationhood. But I think most of what's put forward today is a scam by the Scottish National Party. They're really just another lesser evil party who want to preserve capitalism. By the way, students up there, they might not have to pay tuition fees, but the Scottish government caps how many Scottish students can go to a university. And it means that they prefer students to come from England and Wales and Northern Ireland because there's money for them. I don't believe any big change comes through these things.
One of my main constructive plans that I'm trying to put into place is trying to get student councillors where they can represent the council where it's needed the most. I will work with them because if I was elected, that what's needed the most through your elected councillors, how am I going to work with them? That's going to be my first priority, to get student councillors.
Devolution was something that was introduced by, if I remember correctly, Chancellor then George Osborne and David Cameron. It was a good concept, bringing power base to local people. But I would say, and I say quite openly, that it has been used to the benefit of certain parties or certain individuals rather than the community as whole. And if devolution is to benefit the community, then that's not very apparent. And somebody needs to start questioning that. And I will be the one that will question that once elected.